Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Alan Poltonevich. I'm a recycling coordinator with Montgomery County's Department of Environmental Protection in the Recycling and Resource Management Division, Waste Reduction and Recycling section. We want to welcome you to today's virtual webinar focused on implementing food scrap recycling programs at multifamily properties. We're happy you were able to join us today. We know you're very busy, so we're going to be respectful of your time and try to do our best to keep us on schedule. And we are anticipating to complete the webinar by 3:30 p.m. This is an interactive webinar. As we go through the presentations, we encourage you to jot down any questions you may have. You also may use the chat feature. We will have plenty of opportunities for questions to the guest speakers this afternoon, as well as the opportunity to break into a network session for a breakout groups where we're going to talk in a little bit more detail about any experience or questions we have about implementing food scrap programs at our multifamily properties. We'll have you paired with a staff person and one of our guest speakers, and then we'll have a summary following that breakout session for everyone to hear what's going on. So again, we're really happy to have you join us today on this very important topic here in Montgomery County, implementing food scrap recycling programs at multifamily properties. So with that, we'll go ahead and get started with our first presentation this afternoon. So here in Montgomery County, food scraps is really an important topic for us, and you've probably heard about it over the several past webinars we've hosted over the past year and a half, and prior to COVID, even during our in-person webinars, we've been incorporating the discussion of food scraps as an additional program for multifamily properties to maximize recycling. And what I just want to do this afternoon is just give everyone a sort of a quick status update of where we stand in terms of our recycling program, and then really get into the importance of implementing food scrap programs. So here in Montgomery County, just a quick status update of where we stand. We have about 715 multifamily properties, and that's apartments and condominiums. And our definition of a multifamily property are properties that have 7 or more dwelling units. If it's 6 or fewer, we consider them part of our single family residential program, but 7 or more dwelling units we consider in our multifamily sector. The county does not provide refuse or recycling collection services to the multifamily sector, as you're most very familiar with, that you contract with private collection companies that have your refuse and recycling collection services provided for your communities. We do have about 220,000 single family households in Montgomery County where we do provide recycling collection services on a weekly basis. And then of those 220,000 single family homes, we do provide refuse service to a smaller amount, probably about 95,000 single family homes in the Down County area. We have about 33,000 businesses in Montgomery County that employ over 500,000 people. And just like our multifamily sector, the county does not provide refuse or recycling collection services to our businesses. And our definition of business are businesses, not for profit organizations, for profit companies, local, state, federal government facilities, public schools, private schools, churches, synagogues, mosques, anything that's not a residence we consider a business. So when you add all these numbers together, we estimate there are more than 1.5 million people living or working in Montgomery County, and our responsibility is to provide technical assistance, education, training, educational materials to everyone to make sure everyone is recycling right. They're maximizing their recycling efforts. They're working to reduce the amount of waste generated to meet our goals, which is to reduce waste and recycle more while aiming for zero waste. So that's our mission. That's what we're aiming for. We're trying to minimize what is being thrown away in the trash, so that way we don't have to figure, does that go into a recycling? Does it go into the trash can? What happens to that material? We're reducing it at the very beginning there. We're not going to have that material to even figure out what to do with it. And then of that material that we do generate, maximize our recycling as much as we possibly can, so we can aim for minimizing the amount of waste that ultimately is then disposed. So how are we doing it towards that goal? So happy to show you this screen here. This is actually a brand new update earlier in the month of July. The state Maryland Department of the Environment just released the calendar year 2019 Maryland Recycling Act recycling data for the state of Maryland. So this is fresh off the press. I like to say just this past July. And here in Montgomery County, in calendar year 2019, we recycled just over 638,000 tons of materials. We're generating over 1 million tons of waste. So of that over 1 million ton of materials being generated, so of that 1+ million tons of waste that we're generating, we're recycling just over 638,000 tons, which means our recycling rate is 58.17%. Here in the state of Maryland, the state also allows counties in Baltimore City to request what we call a source reduction credit based on the number of programs or initiatives that we've implemented to try to minimize the amount of waste generated. So there's a checklist that each county in Baltimore City can check off. And based on that report, the state of Maryland awarded Montgomery County a 5% source reduction credit. So we take that 5% source reduction credit, add it to our recycling rate to give us the overall waste diversion rate, which is 63.17%. So all of your efforts are really paying off. I just want to make sure we show that to you to show that we are making a difference here in Montgomery County and we are aiming towards zero waste. So the next slide will show you where the breakdown of waste is coming from. So again, just under 1.1 million tons of waste that was generated during calendar year 2019. Our business sector generates the majority of that. Over half of that comes from our commercial sector. About 40% comes from our single family households, and about 9% comes from our multifamily sector. So even though the materials we're talking about today as part of this webinar is a smaller portion of our overall solid waste generation, it still does make an impact towards our overall goals. And now how do we stand in terms of our recycling rate for the sector? So the next slide will show our breakdown by sectors. Our single family sector is just recycling just under 65%. Our businesses are just about 58%. And our multifamily properties are recycling just over 28% of all of the waste generated. So of that 9.0% of the trash material solid waste being generated by the multifamily sector, you're recycling 28% of that material. So that's outstanding because, as you know, in working in the multifamily sector, there are a lot of challenges that you're experiencing on a daily basis in terms of constant education, tenants coming and going, employees coming and going, education in terms of making sure the residents know what can be recycled, how to recycle at the property. Then you have to deal with issues of contamination, and then of course what's going on recently with COVID and all the challenges you've been experiencing. So a 28% recycling rate for multifamily is considered a high recycling rate when we compare Montgomery County to other jurisdictions across the country. So don't walk away thinking that's a bad number. That's a great number. What we're going to try to do is try to increase that a little bit more. And we're going to do that by implementing food scrap programs. So we can go to the next slide. So the reason why we know we can actually increase recycling in the county is by looking at the amount of waste being generated. So every couple of years, the county does a waste composition study where basically we dig through the trash. We go through trash that is sent for disposal, and we break it down. We try to identify the materials that makes up that disposed trash to figure what's being thrown in the trash. Is it plastic? Is it paper, cardboard, aluminum cans, food scraps? And we do a study, a season study. So we do winter, spring, summer, fall, because we know trash generation changes by the seasons. And we do that over a year period. And our most recent study was completed in 2017. And we estimated of the amount of materials disposed in the trash, 124,000 tons of that material in the trash actually included food scraps that can be recycled. And when we try to break it down by the sector, we estimate about 16,000 tons per year of food scraps are being disposed of by our apartments and condominiums. So if we can work to get that 16,000 tons of food scraps currently going in the waste stream out of the waste stream and recycled, it should definitely have a positive impact towards our recycling rate. So after that study, the county council passed a bill 28-16, which requires Montgomery County to look at food scraps. And the next slide highlights our strategic plan to advance composting, compost use, and food scraps diversion in Montgomery County. And basically what we did, we had over 200 plus stakeholders analyze, review, research how we can advance composting in Montgomery County, how we can motivate others to use compost, and then try to divert food scraps from the waste stream through reducing wasted food or channeling food to others in need. So we broke it into 6 different groups, and we analyzed, reducing wasted food, channeling food to others. We looked at in-home, backyard, community scale composting, on-site and on-site business composting, composting on farms, composting capacity to serve Montgomery County, such as facilities that can manage the food scraps, and then maximizing food scraps collection at the curb. And again, over 200 stakeholders work together to identify what Montgomery County can do to maximize food scraps reduction and recycling in Montgomery County. And this study was published in April 2018. And I have to tell you, it's a study that's not sitting on the shelf. We are actually looking at it every single day. And since 2018, we built a lot of the different recommendations into our budgeting process, and we're implementing these programs. So just want to share that we do have a great resource. If anyone is interested, you can go on our website, montgomerycountymd.gov/food scraps, and it will link to our food scraps page, and you can actually get a link right to our strategic plan there. And in the chat feature is a link directly to the strategic plan as well. So it's not a very complicated read, but it's very interesting to go through. So if you have time, feel free to download it, take a look at it, and let us know if you do have any questions. So with that, moving on to how this impacts multifamily properties, our next slide will show that, again, because we estimate about 16,000 tons of food scraps are being disposed in the waste stream, it really does present a great opportunity to minimize what's being disposed in the waste and recycle more. It is an important part to our overall waste diversion and recycling goals, as we're aiming towards that goal of zero waste. And working together, multifamily properties, apartments, and condominiums, as well as our department, we're going to be working together with you to help as much as we can possibly help set up successful food scraps programs to, again, get those food scraps that otherwise would have been disposed in the waste stream and recycled. And when we talk about food scraps, it's not just the fruits and vegetables, but it's also meats, the bones, the clippings. So these materials are going to commercial facilities that can handle stuff that you would never put into a backyard compost bin, for example, and we can get it out of that waste stream and recycled. So with that, our next part of the webinar today will give you a quick overview of the Zoom features that you're going to be experiencing today. And I'll turn that over to Melissa.
Thank you, Alan. So before we continue, we'd like to cover a few housekeeping items. We're sure most, if not all of you, are familiar with Zoom, but let's review a few things. Please keep your microphone muted at all times, unless you're in a breakout session, asking a question during the Q&A, or the host asks you to unmute yourself. We will have a Q&A after all the speakers have presented. At any time, though, please enter any questions you have into the chat, and they'll be addressed during the Q&A later. And throughout today's webinar, please feel free to use the reaction emojis found at the bottom of your screen to let us know how you're feeling. Now, on the next slide, you'll see we built a game into today's webinar presentations called Secret Words. So throughout the presentations, you'll occasionally see words popping up or floating by on your screen. Write those words down. At the conclusion of today's webinar, we're going to ask you to complete a survey, and in the survey, you can provide those words to be entered for a chance to win a prize. And today's prize is a reusable bag with several recycled content giveaways, including a water bottle, lunchbox, glass mug, and pen. And so with that, we can move on to our next presentation.
Thank you, Melissa. I would now like to introduce Ruth Carbonell. Ruth is the Multifamily Recycling Program Manager with our Waste Reduction Recycling section. Ruth has been the program manager since right before COVID in January 2021, but Ruth is no stranger to our program. She's actually been with our division for over 9 years, since March of 2013. Ruth actually started her career in Montgomery County working as a recycling program specialist in our multifamily sector for 5 years before she was promoted to our collection section as a recycling investigator, where she worked in that position for 2 years. But we were able to convince her to come back to our section as the multifamily recycling program manager, where she works to bring her passion to work with communities to help them build successful waste reduction and recycling programs. So with that, I would like to now turn it over to Ruth.
Thank you, Alan. And thank you, everybody who was able to attend to this webinar. We're very excited to spend the next 60 minutes or so with you. And we hope that we can address all the questions that you have and that you brought today. But if there are any questions that we didn't cover during these presentations, please feel free to reach out to us afterwards via email or phone calls, and we will be able to talk about specific details for your program. So today I'm gonna discuss the implementation of food scraps recycling programs at multifamily properties. And we have few easy steps to follow that are our recommendations for you to start a program. We are going to go into more detail on all of this, so I'm gonna just give you an overview right now. The first one will be conducting an audit of your trash containers. It's very important for you to, whenever you start any program, to see what are you actually dealing with. What is the amount of the quantity of products that you're going to be processing, and what are the materials that are coming to your waste stream. Surveying also residents' interest in recycling food scraps program is very important tool to have in place when you are actually, you haven't even started, you're just trying to see how many people are already buying into the program and how many other people, how many other residents or staff you have to help to get more committed or to gather their interest or their questions. So that's very important survey that you want to have. And again, we can help you with any of these steps. Also, you want to contact a food scraps recycling collection service provider. And we have a list of providers that are they are licensed in the county, and they can help you with that. So if you need a list, we can provide that, and you can start from that list. Shop around. Don't feel like you have to just go with the first person that told you that they do food scraps collection. And also, it's very good to start with your recycling collectors, the ones that you are already using for either commingled materials or mixed paper and cardboard. So you can also start asking them to see if they are already providing this service to anybody in the neighborhood or anybody in the county. The other step will be verifying the type of materials that are acceptable in the program, and we're going to give you like a general list of items that are the do's and don'ts pretty much of the food scraps program. So that's coming up. Educate all your residents and your staff. That's very important as well. You don't want to start a program and then you're going to know that the residents didn't even know you had that program in place, or they're going to find out months later. That's not ideal. So you want to start educating them even before the program kicks off. Monitor your program and resolve any issues as they arise. So any small problem can become a big issue if we just let it grow and grow, right? And that goes to anything in our life. So if we don't start from the very beginning, addressing those issues as they arise, we may have, an out of control program, and nobody wants that. So we really want you to be successful at this program. Let's break it down for you. You already have everything in place. You already have a program for mixed paper and cardboard. You're recycling every single commingled item that is listed by the county. You have a yard tree composting program, or you have the Christmas trees being collected for being composted. You have everything in place. You do your scrap metal recycling, but you are like, I want to do more. I'm going to go the extra mile. So that's why you are here today, right? And we are very happy to have you here. And thank you for doing that. Thank you for being a good recycler. The next step is the food scraps. Like Alan just said, that's the next frontier. Or I would say that's the actual frontier, because many facilities are doing it already in the county. And that's what we are all aiming for. We really want multifamilies to get engaged into this beautiful journey where they can start reducing waste and recycling more, but doing this food waste recycling programs, implementing them. So again, the surveying of your residents will give you a lot of information on how many residents are already interested. They may have great ideas. They may have been at other facilities or at other properties where they were already doing this type of food waste composting. So you may get a lot of information from those surveys. And again, if you guys need any help setting up those surveys or implementing them or developing, we can help you with that. I think Alan already covered that, but I wanted to bring that up again. The waste composition study that was published in 2018, but it actually started in 2017, provide us a big number that it may be like, oh, it's only 60,000 tons, but it's a lot when you're translating that into pounds. It's almost like 32 million pounds of food scraps that were disposed in the waste stream from annually by the multifamily properties. And I can only imagine that number being a little bit more because the multifamily sector is growing exponentially. We have a lot of high rises in the community. We have a lot of garden style also popping out everywhere. So we have a lot of food scraps being generated and being disposed in the waste stream. So our goal is to recover that from the waste stream and to make sure, we create compost, we create a soil fertilizer that is going to be beneficial for the environment. So without further ado, I would like to provide you with a comprehensive list of the items that are acceptable or the most acceptable materials in a food scraps recycling program. Again, I cannot emphasize this stronger. Check with your collector for a specific list of acceptable items. There may be items that are not accepted by a particular facility, recycling and waste recycling facility, food scraps recycling facility. So make sure you ask them first. So whenever you sit down with a contractor and you're trying to get an idea of what they want you to do, ask them for a very updated list of acceptable items and make sure they keep you aware of what they're doing. And one of those, I'm gonna just read through them. So fruits and the peelings, the vegetable peelings, you wanna put their meats and bones, breads and grains, seafood, dairy products, plants and flowers, coffee grounds, paper filters and tea bags, soil compostable papers, products like paper towels, napkins, and pizza boxes. So this is your opportunity to get rid of those pizza boxes you always wanted to recycle in the mixed paper bin. So now is your opportunity to start composting them. Soil wash correct cardboard. Those are also a lot of products that they come in that material, and people want to put them always in the mixed paper containers, but they are actually compostable. Compostable bags, and on this matter, also compostable food servingware. In this part, I wanted to let you know that you have to also double check the specifications with your collector, because there are different compostable bags, and not all of them comply with a X or Y facility, recycling and processing facility for food scraps. So you want to make sure they are up to their standards. So every single facility, they may be breaking down at different temperatures, the compostable items, the serviceware or the compostable bags. So you want to make sure you are using the same specifications that they are accepting. Okay, so this one is very important. What items are not acceptable in a food scrap recycling program? So, of course, plastic bags, wrappers, or foam. We do not accept those neither in our recycling programs, in any of the curbside programs, or any of the commercial or multifamily programs. Those plastic bags are not acceptable. Please remember that's why we are so strong about using reusable bags. We really encourage you to always avoid plastic bags. If you cannot avoid them, reuse them or bring them to the stores that are participating in recycling plastic bags. Also, the polystyrene and styrofoam, they can be disposed in the trash. They don't come, they are not allowed in the food scraps recycling program. The plastic bottles, jar containers, etc., all those go in the recycling bin, the commingled recycling bin. Plastic utensils, some of the plastic utensils, if they have the number 7 and they are made of a plant-based content, they are then compostable. But again, ask your holder, your collector, to make sure that type of plastic is acceptable. It's a number 7 utensil. Usually it's very hard to tell for those because they are so tiny. So if you are in a doubt, leave it out. Don't put it in the composting bin. Foil line and plastic line papers, glass of any kind. And again, the glass, we do recycle glass in our recycling program, but the glass is to be put in the commingled bin. It's not to be placed in any food scraps container. It's not to be placed in any mixed paper container unless you have, if you have a single stream collection, which is something else, but we're not going to talk about that today. Pet waste, including cat litter, that should be thrown in the trash. Ceramic or plastic dishes, please, the ceramics, you know, they can be donated if they are in good condition, so you can just dispose of them in the trash or reuse them, donate them. Pots or pans, they can be thrown in the scrap metal bin and the scrap metal collection. Latex or rubber gloves, they need to be thrown in the trash. Hair nets and face masks, facial and toilet paper, they should be in the trash. Diapers as well, grease or fats, raw dog, and Curie style coffee pots. So all of these items, if you see, most of them have some type of plastic in it. So definitely plastic is not acceptable in any food scraps recycling program. So that could be a clue if you don't remember this whole list, right? And again, if you are in a doubt, please ask your collector and don't wait until the load has been taken to a facility and it may be rejected. So that's the last thing you want it to happen, because what happens is we don't have many facilities approved in Maryland. So if they get rejected at one and they go to another one, you know, they can create you a big deal. So make sure you always, before you're going to start the program, you have the very comprehensive list, you share it with all your residents, and you everybody is aware, all your staff is aware of what is going there. If you are in a multifamily facility that has a on-site cafeteria, you want to make sure you train the staff, and that's why the hair nets are there, because that's a very common mistake. When they finish their workday, they tend to just take off their hair net and throw it on top of the trash or on top of the food scraps container. So that's an easy fix, but that's been seen, that's why it's there. Okay, please keep in mind that we encourage you to use compostable bags. And the reason for that is because that helps you to keep the containers clean, and also it decreases the amount of quantity that you have to be cleaning containers, helps you with the odors, help you to maintain things straight line and clean. And also the logistics of the collections are easier, handled much easier in a more effective way if you have compostable bags. But again, double check with your collector. Ask them if they provide the compostable bags. If they don't, at least they have to give you, you know, the recommendations where to buy them or what type of plastic bag, a compostable bag you will need. Conduct frequent refresher trainings for staff and residents. We recommend you at least every 6 months to train your staff. So if you can do it even often, that's better. You can do newsletters, you can do posters, you can do presentations in partnership with the county. So we have 2 program specialists there. They could help you. I myself can go and help you train staff. And we have opportunities for you guys to keep learning more about the journey of recycling food scraps. So please don't just start your program and forget about it for a year and think everything is going to be well. Make sure you are on top, making sure things are up to date and that everybody is getting continually trained. So it goes for the new staff, especially when you get somebody new. You may have a beautiful program, you have everything color coded, and you have all the labels and you have all the posters in the world, but then this new person comes and they have no idea what to put in there, and you start seeing a lot of contaminants. So then when one person does it wrong, the next person who comes may think, oh, things have changed, so now I can add this too, and start adding things that are not belonging to the container. So make sure you keep your new stuff up to date. And again, monitor your program and adjust it as it grows. That's our best recommendation, and it's the last one, but that's not the less important. If we are not monitoring the programs, then we don't know how is it effective, or are we saving money? You can do all this type of analysis at the end of the year. Ask your hauler if they can provide you with the total amount of food scraps collected per year. So that way you can add those amounts in your annual recycling and waste reduction report. If you have been with us with the county for at least more than a year, you know by now that we have every February 1st, there is a mandatory requirement to report your waste reduction efforts and the amount of recyclables that you were able to collect from your property. So that's another important thing. If your collector can give you those amount in pounds, then you will get credit for the overall of your recycling rate. So you may be thinking, well, there's a lot of stuff to do, but listen, we have resources. And the good news are that you're not the only person or the only property who's gonna do this. There are several properties that are already doing it in the county, and that's we're gonna see we're gonna hear from the speakers. Some of them already have done this through the case studies. So we have here, there is a link in your slides that you're gonna get where you can go and check these property case studies where we have different styles of properties, mid-rises, high-rises, garden styles that are being successful. They have been successful implementing food scrap recycling. So the good news is that it is possible. It may take work, but as you get into it, you're gonna love it. You're gonna realize that this is the right thing to do. We also have the brochure, the food scrap recycling brochure, where this was just recently developed and updated. We have it currently in English, but it's coming very soon in Spanish. So if you have any staff members or any residents that are in need of a different language, you can let us know and we can facilitate those. They are available through our web store and at no cost. We also have the calls that were also recently redesigned and printed. And we have then, like I said, available for all of you. If you have residents that are gonna use the kitchen food scraps container, there is a a small container, that sticker, that label is gonna help that too. So they can use it also in the kitchen for when they have visitors, the visitors will know what to do, right? Next, we also have the poster, and this is a very comprehensive poster too, where we show you what to put in the container, and it's a very practical way to educate also your staff and to place it in common areas where these containers will be. Okay, well, thank you. This is all from me today, and I look forward for the questions at the end. Here is my contact information. You have my email, my cell phone. So we're still teleworking, so you can, instead of calling me to my phone line, you can call me to my cell phone. And there is also our website, montgomerycountymd.gov/recycle right. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ruth. So again, if you have any questions for Ruth, go ahead and put them into the chat feature and we'll be answering your questions during the Q&A session. We also have links to all those resources that Ruth just mentioned also in the chat. So at the end of the presentation, you can also save a copy of the chat. That way it's an easy reference for you. But again, our goal is to make sure we have the information, we get it out to you. Anything that we can do to help you minimize your efforts by providing you with the stickers, the labels, the brochures, that we can help you with that. You can take that off your work plate and use those resources that we provide. So it's now my opportunity to introduce our next guest speaker, Mr. Harold Jones. Harold is the Director of Environmental Services at Asbury Methodist Village. His responsibility is to establish infection prevention measures and environmental safety for all 1,400 residents and 800 associates at Asbury Methodist Village. Harold has 25 years of experience as an environmental services professional and has been in his current position at Asbury for the past 7 years. He has a dual MBA in project management and human resources and is a CHSM, CHCM, and CHESP certified and has won 2 organizational awards in 2012, 2016, and 2018 for successfully leading high-performing teams. And we've worked with Harold for many years on their recycling efforts at Asbury and really looking forward to his presentation on their efforts on food scraps. So at this time, please let me introduce Mr. Harold Jones. Harold.
Thank you, Alan. Good afternoon, everyone. As Alan said, I am the Director of Environmental Services at Asbury Methodist Village. We're a 134-acre continuing care community located in Gaithersburg, Maryland. And we serve around 1,400 residents, and we're budgeted at around 800 employees. We provide 3 levels of care for our residents. We have 133 apartments in our assisted living, 257 beds in our skilled care, and 710 apartments in our on campus in our independent living, and also 74 villas and 43 courtyard homes. Our campus is a total of 11 buildings and 117 homes. A little bit about the scope of our recycling program. Okay, because we're set up, because of our setup and the size of our campus, the waste and recycling program is extremely robust. For the comfort and convenience of our independent residents, we have trash rooms on every floor of every apartment building. We have a total of 63 trash rooms where residents can place, where they are accessible to residents to place their trash and recycling from the home. These rooms are serviced by environmental services daily, and recycling is transported directly from the holding area and trash as well in areas where a chute is not present. The trash and recyclables are transferred by environmental services to 12 holding areas where it is picked up by our hauler, Republic Services. This is a pretty large undertaking by the EVS department, and requires 8 employees working 2 hours per day, 7 days a week, for a total of 2.8 FTEs to manage trash and recycling from the point when it reaches the trash room to delivery to the holding areas. A new beginning with composting. So my numbers probably are a little bit different from Alan's, but we're definitely going to trust Alan's numbers. But an average of 50% of municipal waste is compostable. 21% of that is food scraps, and 15% is paper or paperboard. This is our target. We want to remove these items from the waste stream and support environmental sustainability and revitalize our environment for present and future generations. We initially started researching the composting in 2016, but were unable to secure a vendor that was actually large enough to handle the volume at our community and on our campus. In 2018, we actually reached out to a vendor called the Compost Crew, and they were able to manage our potential volume of compost, which gave us a little bit of head start on the county. So in April of 2019, we implemented phase 1 of our composting program. We initially placed 10 65-gallon bins on a schedule of 3 pickups per week at our main dining venues across the campus. Dining employees are responsible for collecting food scraps and discarding them into compost bins after each meal. In 2019, we collected 87,034 pounds of compost with a monthly cost of $3,500 per month. We now have 12 65-gallon compost bins in these areas. In February of 2020, we started phase 2 of our composting program. Phase 2 of our program targeted our residential population. We placed 9 65-gallon compost bins in resident locations on a schedule of 1 pickup per week. Residents are responsible for delivering food scraps to strategically placed compost bins according to their building location. In 2020, we collected 169,042 pounds of compost between phase 1 and phase 2, with an additional monthly cost for the residential portion of $625 per month. Our total spend for compost is $49,500 annually. With the majority of that going to phase 1, the residential portion is a lot less expensive because we have less pickups and we have 1 bin in each resident building. Okay, so implementing a program at your facility, just some tips that I learned along the way. Okay, and I think Ruth and Alan both spoke to educating your residents. That's a huge piece. Many people don't know what composting is. They don't know how easy it is. You know, you're already putting the items in the trash, and they don't know the benefits to the environment. A big part of education is partnering with your composting partner. Your partner can provide information and education to your residents that where I'm not a specialist on composting, but they are. Here at AMV, our service provider, Compost Crew, did a 15-minute educational segment at every resident council meeting, and they recorded a 20-minute educational segment that was continuously aired on campus television. We also provided residents with pamphlets and composting literature provided by the compost crew. Here, we also have all the county information that they provided as well. At the time that we actually started, we didn't have all that information. Your service provider is thoroughly educated on the benefits of composting and can deliver compelling and convincing information to your residents. That's really important. Another piece that I think we spoke on earlier too is let the champions in your building help you succeed. Even if you don't currently have a composting program implemented in your building or on your campus, you have residents who are already composting. Here at AMV, 10% of our resident population were already committed to composting and were dropping their compost off at locations that were established by the city of Gaithersburg. And I found that out in our resident council meetings. These residents have championed our program, and they've assisted leadership in getting other residents on board. Biggest piece is to keep it simple. And this was big for me because, like I said, we're a very robust operation. So when I started thinking about composting, I had developed this huge plan with additional FTEs, providing residents with compostable bags. And, you know, when I had put the whole strategy together for implementation, we were talking several $100,000. Well, you know, when you have a budget, it's kind of hard to convince somebody to invest a couple $100,000 right off the bat on something that you're really introducing as a new item in a recycling program. So don't complicate establishing a program. 165-gallon bin in a central location with one pickup per week can be very inexpensive. I'm talking a couple $100, all right, to start your composting program. Don't overthink the process or make it more expensive than it has to be. A program can grow over time and doesn't have to be fully implemented across the entire campus in one day. The key to a successful program is ongoing education and a simple approach. At AMV, our residents are responsible for bringing their compost materials to the collection bin and their designated areas. They're also responsible for any materials they wish to use to support composting, such as compostable bags, which are optional at the level in the home. Now, we actually do have compostable bags that we put in our 65-gallon bins, but they actually can bring their compostables down in paper bags. They can bring their can directly down, dump it straight into the compostable bin. So they really don't need the bags. And that was what our residents here were really pushing for us to provide bags. But a part of composting that everyone has to understand that it's all of our responsibility. So that was my pushback, you know, to let our residents know, like, hey, you know what, this is our environment. You know, I need you to help me so we can help our environment. You know, like I said, it's a collective effort between residents, employees, and all of our campus leaders. That's pretty much all I have today. Thank you.
Thank you, Harold. Really appreciate your overview of your program and your implementation of the food scraps program at Asbury. Really appreciate that. It's now my opportunity to introduce our next speaker, Ms. Barbara Brubeck. Barbara is presently serving as Operations Director for Residential Living at Friends House Retirement Community, a CCCR that has an affordable housing component and is a registered village. As the listener in chief, she learns from the wisdom and the ingenuity of the residents that she serves as they navigate changes to their environment together. As the operations manager, she has been fostering engaged communities and resident well-being in housing environments for 35 years. She has also served as a commissioner on the Montgomery County, Maryland Commission on Aging, where her fluency in HUD has helped with pushing affordable housing for older adults to the forefront of the county agenda. So please join me in welcoming Barbara.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for having me here today. Very excited to be here. I'm going to talk about the Friends House food scrap recycling that's been going on since the 1980s. I'll start by briefly introducing you to Friends House and how the Friends House physical and cultural environment supports food scrap recycling. I'll also talk about how you can do this in your communities by bringing in the support of your partners, your champions. And finally, I'll run through the logistics of our program. Friends House is almost one of a kind. We started in 1967 as a HUD Section 202 rental community for residents 62 years old or better. Quakers started building little cottages and on the campus, and then we added health centers one by one. And in 2007, we became licensed as a continuing care retirement community. And those are homes with lifetime rentals and healthcare options. But because of our start as an affordable housing community, we had a budget to match, of course. This gave us a very ground up approach to the food scrap recycling. It's very homegrown, if you will. It grew out of also the physical and cultural environment that is admittedly ideal for this activity. We have a campus large enough to hold old school compost piles and a 3-acre garden and equipment to turn these piles. We have gardeners who create the demand for the food scraps. We have dining services who add to the supply of food scraps, and to some degree, because many of the residents are relying on those dining services, that helps us control the flow of food scraps. And not everyone has these amenities to support food scrap recycling, but fortunately, composting technology is now available to work in many different housing settings. And although the physical environment may not be replicated in your community, the cultural environment can be. And I think that's what I'm really here to talk about today is promoting this environment of sustainability. We have in our community community values known as the SPICES. So that's the acronym: simplicity, peace, nonviolence, integrity, community, equality, stewardship, and sustainability. And these values are supported by our administration and our very empowered residents association, the Friends House Seniors Association, and they're actually a 501c3 nonprofit. The Seniors Association and Friends House administration partner in all the programs at Friends House. And so what does this mean in our community to support an environment of, or a culture of environmental sustainability? So at Friends House, this means we support pollinators, for example. We have beehives, a butterfly garden, native plant meadows, landscaping, native plant meadows and landscaping, an organic garden, and pesticide-free landscaping. Now, you don't need 62 acres to incorporate native plants into your foundation plantings or to add some pollinator-friendly flowers to the pots outside your office, or to contract for pesticide-free landscaping. We're all here to promote healthy environments, and pesticide-free habitats are healthy for humans too. Other cues in our community to environmental sustainability are our hyper-local organic farmers market that comes every Friday, clotheslines. They're not allowed in a lot of communities, but we promote them at Friends House, a bottle refilling station or two, LEED Gold certification on our new construction, and ongoing book exchange, resale shop, free bench to keep unwanted items out of the trash stream. So we do encourage that people share what they're through with. So you might find a half a bottle of laundry detergent on the free bench for someone to use if someone's moved out and can't use it. They can't take it when they're moving. And of course, food scrap recycling using our compost piles. So I'm also, again, an advocate of champions, and our best champions are our residents. But many environmentalists are passionate about this subject and will happily engage with management and residents to drive your food scrap recycling programs, given the opportunity. They will be your champions educating and promoting the program. The primary proponents of the culture of environmentalism and the Friends House food scrap recycling program are our residents. We have an environment, when I say we, this is the Friends House Seniors Association, that's our residents association, has an environment committee. that supports the culture of environmentalism and engages with staff on campus issues and fundraising too. They put in a grant for the Chesapeake Bay Foundation. Residents maintain several libraries, including specialty libraries on gardening and the environment. And the garden committee runs our food scrap recycling program. They recruit resident volunteers, they schedule them, they collect the scraps and they move them, and they collect them from trash rooms and from the kitchen and move them out to the piles in the garden. The manager of that garden committee is the one that does the primary education of staff and residents, and also they volunteer. They actually move some of the scraps and make sure the containers are returned clean. Staff also play an important role, of course. For the sales team, we promote environmentalism, our value, community value, and it has a very broad appeal in this region from a marketing point of view. So every sales presentation, our website, and all our marketing materials, or a lot of our market materials, include something about what this means in our community. Resident services make sure that food scrap recycling is part of orientation. So when we are in a new resident's home, when we walk them to their home, we also walk them to the recycling and trash room and let them know how easy it is to participate, and offer them tips like keep your food scraps in the freezer until you're ready to recycle them to keep the fruit flies down. Little things like that to help people understand that this is something you can do without any inconvenience at all. The kitchen, of course, that staff in the kitchen contributes to our scrap piles, and then maintenance, of course, they use their New Holland to turn the piles, and I'll give you a little bit of detail on that a little later. And then administration, of course, promotes the values, and they should know that ultimately the food scrap recycling positively impacts their bottom line. It's cheaper to compost on site than it is to haul scraps away. We engage the community in our efforts too. Last month, we had teams from the local friends meeting in our garden shoveling mulch. Master gardeners come to us weekly to consult with us on the garden, including compost. We have 4 containers there. And so they're in our garden. And when the residents move the compost out to the garden, it goes into the first container. And the second container contains leaves. So we cover the scraps with the leaves. And some of the volunteers will sometimes go in and break up the bits of compost if they're large to small pieces, break down more quickly. And then when it's ready, the maintenance team will actually transfer from bin 1 to bin 3 the actively composting materials. And let's see, I think, and I forgot what bin 4 is for. That's terrible. We've got, yeah, I guess finished compost is in bin 4. So that's what when it's done, it goes to bin 4, and we can collect that and put it in the garden, put it in the pots outside your office. Incidentally, one of the benefits that we remind residents of when we're collecting food scrap recycling, or food, yeah, sorry, this is new lingo for me. I'll just say compost. We're taking food scraps for compost, is that food from the garden ends up on the free bench for them too. So everybody benefits from this program. We really believe in celebrating this too. And one of our traditions over the 8 years that I've been at Friends House is to have a big garden party and to invite our partners in. The folks from the Master Gardeners help us with that. We have had a tomato tasting competition, these sorts of things. And to invite actually everybody into the garden to understand the benefits. We also have received a couple of awards from the county. They're very good about giving our residents lovely green plaques with golden letters. They're actually quite attractive to recognize their efforts in this area. So we've received our are awards from the county for recycling and for the composting. And one was for the community and one was for an individual. Her exercise program was actually going from room to room and making sure everybody was recycling properly. I'll bet you can identify a resident in your community who would like to do that. And of course, Earth Day is another time when we celebrate sustainability in our community. So that's about it for me today. A little more homegrown than Asbury, but it does show that you can do this in many different settings. So, thank you.
Thank you, Barbara, for your presentation. And I know you have a great on-site recycling program, a little bit different than Harold's program where he has a contract in place for that collection service. So segueing into our final guest speaker today, Ms. Edna Quetti, who has a lot of great experience implementing food scrap programs for residents. So Edna is the Community Association Manager with Compost. She was a former on-site manager for over 15 years and has phenomenal experience in firsthand experience setting up a food scraps program and then expanding that program for residents. So now join me in welcoming Ms. Edna Quetti. Edna.
Good afternoon, Alan and the entire team. Thank you for the opportunity to present to you and the attendees as well. Again, my name is Edna Quetti. I am currently a community association manager with Compost Management. I've been a portfolio manager now for a little over 2 years, formerly a site manager for in excess of more than 15 plus years. As Alan mentioned, I was part of, I think, the county's study program, pilot program, and I worked with that at one of my sites when I was working as a site manager. Composting, as the prior presenter said, do not overthink it. The people are right there in your community, and you can go right to them. So why compost? As far as multifamily communities are concerned or condominiums are concerned, the question is always, well, why do we want to do that? We already have a trash vendor who comes to collect our trash, but can you do something to improve what's going back into nature? We're recycling, we're moving, taking trash, we're separating plastics from aluminum and things like that. Could we do scrap waste metal? Food scrap waste. Can we also do that? Yes, you can. When I started with the site property, it was to reduce food scrap waste because we were coming in contact with a lot of our homeowners were actually trying to go ahead and put aside food scrap, and they were putting them in bags and putting them to the side. And then all those others who simply just didn't bother would just throw the trash in there and stuff would fall down. A couple of homeowners presented themselves and were interested in seeing how we could repurpose food scrap waste. In a multifamily condominium, garden style or high rise, there's always a concern of is there space? Is there space to do that? Why can't we just do it with the regular trash that's going out? How is it going to help? And I think probably the one big thing that they'll always ask, this is going to reduce my condo fees or my HOA dues if I do this. I always started, and when we did this, it was something fun to do. It started out something that you could try doing to better what you are putting into nature. So we talked about food scrap waste and what benefits it has, reducing the emissions and how it affects that negatively, something that you can put into the soil, how you use it, you repurpose food scrap waste to put it back into nature. As you'll see further on in some of the slides, veterans who actually repurpose food scrap waste and use them for mulch and things of this sort, and then other parts of what food scrap waste can actually become. Working with one of the communities, when I did this on site, I worked and I partnered up with a company called Veterans Compost. There are not a lot of companies out there that will do them, but we did come across Veterans Compost. So we collected the food scraps into 7-gallon containers in our trash facilities. We had exterior trash corrals. So a 7-gallon container was put out there. Homeowners who were interested in the food scrap waste pilot program would simply take out what they'd collected from inside of their units and go out to the trash locations and put them into this small 7-gallon container. It was picked up once a week. So when Veteran Compost would pick it up, and there's a little clip here that, the presentation here that basically shows you how it starts with the collected food scraps and where it goes through as it goes through the cycle, and the finished product, where you get, in this instance, you can get mulch that can be repurposed. Mulch, we use mulch in all of our communities, mulch that is used in many different areas. Composting, you see some more of where all of that goes into, farms, feeding the animals and materials. So, I mean, what's coming from us is going back into nature, and we're giving back to nature as we go through the composting process. So when this process began, as Harold said earlier, 2014, we thought it out big. We'll go out, we'll get these large containers, we'll go from here, we'll put them inside units, and maybe people will sign up, maybe they won't sign up, but we'll have a big container by the trash corrals. 2014, it all started. Homeowner coming in and saying, well, I'd like to do some food scrap waste. Can the association go ahead and support this endeavor? It was somewhat received well by the board, but there is a cost associated to it, because where does it go? The regular trash contractor is not going to collect it. So someone has to come and collect it. So from that idea in 2014, we worked with 2 residents, including myself, also doing it at home personally, because I saw the benefits of it all. And with that, we partnered, and from 2014, ended up in 2017, coming up to about another homeowner, and then getting the association to actually agree to a 3-month pilot. When you're in a condominium or in an HOA, the expense to cover something like that would either need to have been in a budget, and if it wasn't in a budget, then someone has to pay for it. And where is that going to come from? So there was discussion about that. And at the time, the 7-gallon containers, so we had 2 of them, 14-gallon, was $45 a month. And so as a homeowner, that homeowner opted to step up and pay for that pilot. There was a lot of interest and a lot of other parties who actually did go and contribute to that collection over the course of that trial period. So we sent out the notice, allowing the community to be aware of the fact that the program was going to start. This is what it contained. Information about the different types of material that is considered acceptable for food scrap waste. Education. The list that is on the slide right now at the time was what was acceptable. As Ruth said earlier, there's a lot more that's been added to this list. So getting to educate the community, going out and seeking information from the sites that have been made available at this presentation earlier is a useful tool to gather information and then look at your community and see how to share that information to the community and get them vested as an interested party in participating in programs such as this. Food scrap waste, does it make a difference in a condominium or HOA setting as far as from the standpoint of how does this benefit the community? I would say it does. And I was actually able to do that in the community that I service. I was able to reduce the amount of days that our trash collection was done by simply taking out the food scrap waste and having that be at the $45 list that says we ended up with the 2 gallons at $90 and having shifted that to food scrap waste. So we were able to get rid of at least one 96-gallon toter. At the time in that community, 6 trash corrals around the property, 224 units. We were able to get out one 96-gallon toter out of the weekly cycle of trash collection, and that was simply removing it to do food scrap waste. It caught on. It caught on to the point that people in the neighboring community heard about it, and they would come over and put things in there. So I would say that in a community, if it's in an area, it's properly marked, as you see in the slide. You educate the homeowners. If you can, get the materials such as the compostable bags, and there are many different varieties, and you do have to speak to the collector, because in some instances, they do not want the bags just because of the manpower to tear open the bags and go through them. They just want it dumped into a container, and then they come in, they swap out the container. So they don't wash the container right there. They take the container that's full and they put a clean container down for you to use until the next visit. Getting the process done takes, as I say, it takes the village. Everyone has to participate, from myself in the office, from staff members and residents as well. So it's a united effort. It's a collective effort on everyone's part. And if everyone who participates in the process, especially if you're doing it in a condominium, I won't say that you shouldn't do it at home, but if you're doing it at work, if you commit to it and you believe in it and you do what needs to be done, I think that you can, because as staffers, when you're working on it, those homeowners who may not read the newsletter or who may not be aware of it, when they ask the questions, you're an educator. You can educate them. You can tell them, yes, we used to have, 6 toters outside to collect trash, but we have that little green one. So if you have any scrap waste from your home, put it up in a bag and take it out there. A common question that people always ask is, well, where do I collect it in my home? Where do you want me to put it? I found that I got more response when I told homeowners, look, if you have a plastic bag, the ones that you put the fruits in when you go to the store, or even the plastic bag, double the bag up, put it in there initially. Put it somewhere where if you have a little container, you can put it in a little container, like a little bowl, close the bowl, put it on the bottom shelf of the refrigerator. Everyone's marked if your house is that type of a house and you do that. Let everyone know. And then at the end of the week, take it outside. It is an inconvenience for people to go in and out each time they have something, but try to tell them the different ways in which they can actually incorporate this into their life. So they're going to be going to the car in the morning. Okay, let's take all of this. Let's go out in the morning. Where do I keep it overnight? I can keep it in the refrigerator, and in the morning I can take it and I can dump it and I can go out. But again, residents, I did resident orientations. I did a newsletter, and I sent out alerts. So putting it in the resident bulletin, on the bulletin board, putting it in the new resident orientation packages, during the orientation sessions, educating the new incoming homeowners of this program is a good way to introduce the subject. If you miss out on that opportunity, the bulletin board's always helpful to get that information out to them. Updates during board meetings, updates in the management report is another way to make sure that that information stays out there circling so that people are aware of it. And the contractors themselves, and in the case of Veteran Compost, actually have scheduled days when people can go out to the farm and actually see start to finish of what they do. They can actually walk you through the process of what they do with the food scrap waste. And that can also be a source of interest for some people, and use that as a beginning point for them to participate in the program. I think I covered this before. I talked about smells and space and location. So again, in a condominium setting, space is always a concern. If you don't have a large enough area for you to put the items in, then you wonder, where am I going to put it, the smell, and just some recommended suggestions of what you can do to combat the smells. Having a container that has a lid, paper towel. I do a lot of paper towel, and I put some vinegar in it and I place it there so that it keeps the odor at bay. and just, sending out information to homeowners, letting them know the proper way to handle food scrap waste, making some suggestions when they run into issues of how else they can do it. Yep. Oh, when we talk about issues with collections in condominium settings and HOA settings, it has a lot to do with what people then in turn, because they don't understand what food scrap waste is, what they do. An example here is in the slide is where someone just simply takes all the plastic and wraps everything in plastic and then they dump them in there. If you do that and you've already spoken to your contractor, there's an issue with them. So this is food scrap waste that can be left behind, where they don't have the means to take the time to go through removing them from the plastic wrappings that they have. So education is what I would say is important. The more you educate the residents, the more information you have. The county now has all of the little stickers that you can put up. The more people are educated, the more they are prepared to do what needs to be done, and they are able to actually do what you want them to do. And I think at the end of the day, you have a more successful program. If there is proper education, contact Ruth, collect the signage from her, post it out there, monitor these areas. If you see anything that's going wrong, update the signs, talk to the contractor. There is a lot to be gained from food scrap waste. Working at the community that I did, it went a long way for those homeowners who actually participated to know that their good deed, their efforts, and their contribution was actually something beneficial to others. The end product for the community when it was collected at the end of the year was more submission to a local charter school in the District of Columbia. So they were able to go there. They were able to see the kids planting. Children, if you're in a community that has children and they are always interested in going outside, they are a good resource because they're learning about this stuff at home, at school. They're bringing it home and they get to bring it to their parents and tell their parents. And I can say that at that community, kids were very useful in getting the food scrap waste program up and running by being interested and bringing it to their parents' attention. Me personally, it was very important to me at the end because my child was learning about it at school and was bringing it home and wanting to practice it. And I got involved in food scrap waste to the point that I actually wanted to, go out and work with other homeowners to start a program. And again, and here I am a couple of years later, and it's still of interest to me because there is a benefit. There's always a benefit somewhere, and it's beneficial to us. And all we just have to do is do our part for the universe because it pays back because we're in it. I think that's it. Thank you.
And thank you very much for the presentation. And again, I want to thank Harold, Barbara, and Anna for your presentations and for joining us. I do know we received a couple questions, so I'm going to turn it over to Ruth. We'll do a quick Q&A session before we break into some small breakout sessions. So Ruth, if
Thank
you
you,
can
Alan.
take on the questions.
Thank you, Alan, and thank you to all our speakers. I'm looking forward to go to that garden party, Barbara. And I have a lot of fun listening to all of you guys, and I hope everybody's on the same page. There is a question regarding, did anyone seek a cost saving from trash disposal after implementing a food scraps program? So maybe Harold, can you answer that?
Yeah, actually, we have seen some significant savings. Our trash bills are normally anywhere from $16,000 to $19,000 a month for trash and recycling, and right now we're probably running about 15 to 18. So I would say about $1,000 a month.
Wow, that's amazing. I think that works for most
And
people.
actually, our Our trash in itself, we actually reduced the amount of trash that we actually collected this year as well. I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, but it was significant from last year. I believe it was a couple 100,000 pounds, but I'll have to confirm that by looking at my reports.
Thank you, Harold. The next question is, I would like to know more about who you reach out for helping to pay or for the compost program. I would like to know who to reach out when accessing fundings or how to help paying for the compost program. Is this, I don't know who asked this question, but I guess, Alan, do you want to answer that question? I don't know if it's from a resident or if it's
No, it's
from
okay. Let's see if any of the speakers have any feedback on, how they get funding to start the programs, because I know everyone sort of gives some. I know Barbara has programs been up and around for quite a while, but maybe and briefly mention the resident who pitched in money initially.
Yes, so from when we worked on this, if you're in a condominium setting, there are instances where the board of directors or your directors or the managers may be able to, because maybe there is a discretionary fund, a miscellaneous fund they could. But I would say that if you want to actually move it forward, the thing is, if you've got someone who really has a passion for this and they're really interested in doing this, like the homeowner that I partnered up with, he paid the first 3 months. He paid that initial 3-month fee. Once he did that, he had committed to doing this. The benefits of it, when others saw that a homeowner was willing to do this, that I was going to put something into, there were others who stepped up and said, here, I'll give you $5, I'll give you $10. Sometimes that is the force that you get to move it along. And in that particular instance, it was done for 6 months. And when we did the budget the following year, we actually included a line item in the budget because we were able to see savings as far as the trash collection was concerned by removing food scrap waste to actually decrease the budget that we had for trash collection and then actually make a line item to deal with food scrap waste. So it is possible to be done.
Thank you, Ekna. Does anybody have any other inputs by?
Yeah, I can
Harold or
add to
Barbara?
that.
Mhm.
I can add to that as well. When we actually implemented our program, we weren't expecting to, and you can see by the timeline, it wasn't like at the beginning of the year, we found a provider and it was like our executive director said, go for it. But what kind of helped us out is that we were under budget along other items in our operational budget. So if you're finding that you have $10,000 to spare, $5,000, that you're under budget in your operational budget, you could talk to a service provider and get the cost of setting up one or two containers. It depends on the size of your community or your campus or your building. And you may actually have some dollars there left over where you could actually put something in place for a few months until your new operational budget comes up for the next year, and then you can squeeze it in that year, and you kind of have you'll have some data where you can plug in how much exactly it's going to cost you. I know when we started, we actually did not have a budget for it. I was just under budget in other areas of my operational budget.
Thank you, Harold. Thank you. And Barbara, did you have anything you would like to add?
We're a little bit of an outlier because of the Seniors Association is a self-funded residents association. They have a little resale shop, again, to keep unwanted items out of the trash stream. And so everything they do in our garden is funded by their own funds from this resale shop. And I know that's not easy to replicate in every community, and certainly some, for example, tax credit communities expressly they're prohibited from doing that kind of thing. So it's a little bit of a challenge. There is another component though. The Seniors Association does also accept donations, and that may be something that's available to your residents associations to help just to spark a program if there's an interest there.
thanks for your patience. We hope this webinar was informative. And since we have a couple minutes, if anyone has any specific questions to ask either the presenters or county staff, you may unmute yourself, raise your hand, or go ahead and enter into the chat. While I'm waiting for that, I just want to take an opportunity to let everyone know during the course of the webinar today, you saw some words slide across the presentation. There were a total of 4 words. So you're going to be entering those words into the survey in order to win the grand prize. And you have to enter in those words in the order that they appeared. So, but I did see the words go across, so I know that works. So are there any questions right now before we wrap up today's webinar?
I have a question. It's Joyce Siegel.
Hi, Joyce.
How many high rises are doing this? Do you know?
Joyce, good question. Ruth, from the annual reports, are you able to remember roughly in your mind?
We have
Memory?
about, I would say no more than 5 to the best of my knowledge.
And just to tag on that, just so everyone knows, the state of Maryland the General Assembly passed a bill that mandates food scraps composting in Maryland based on how much materials are being generated. The focus initially is on the commercial sector. The first requirement takes place January 1st, 2023, that if you generate more than 2 tons of waste a week, you have to recycle your food scraps if you're within 30 miles of a food scraps processing facility that will accept your food scraps for processing. And then January 1st, 2024, the requirement goes down to if you generate 1 ton of materials a week, then you have to recycle food scraps. So the state actually just passed a requirement for food scraps throughout the state of Maryland. So, well, right now we're starting small. We're seeing, like Ruth said, there's 5 high-rise properties, 7 programs. Our goal is to try to get everyone aware about these programs, so that way if a regulation becomes effective in Maryland that impacts the multifamily sector or Montgomery County implements requirements, that everyone will already have programs in place. So we're trying to get ahead of the curve as we see the writing on the wall of these food scraps programs coming down. Are there any other questions?
Well, I have another one then,
Yes, Joyce.
Joyce. If that's the case, are you doing anything to educate condo and high-rise communities about the coming requirements of the state so that they could start learning about composting?
Yeah, Joyce, we're going to do continuing education. Right now, the state law doesn't, we don't believe it impacts multifamily communities. It's more on the commercial side. But I know there's been a lot of talk. So we're keeping our eyes on the state assembly to see if they have anything coming up in this next year. But there's been a lot of interest of different environmental regulations at the state level. So we're keeping our eyes on things, evaluating as things come up. We'll definitely make sure the communities are aware if anything happens.
Joyce, and also just to add to that, we have been doing webinars. Like last year we did one on food scraps recycling. This year we're doing another one. But anytime you guys need any tailored presentation for your community, we will be more than happy to assist you with that.
That's great, thanks.
You're welcome. Thank you. There is
So
one
with
question in the chat. Oh, sorry, Alan.
Go ahead, Ruth.
The,
No, go ahead, Ruth.
the
Go
last
ahead.
question that I have here is actually for Edna. And it says, you mentioned that students were very helpful because they were learning about composting in schools. Do you have any suggestions on how multifamily buildings can connect with schools or vice versa to promote composting?
So, and a side benefit, I was part of the PTA at my daughter's school. So I took the opportunity, and I also volunteered as a parent volunteer in classes. So I engaged with the teachers is where I started. So engaging with the teacher, and then of course your child, they do get into different programs, and in some schools they even have little gardens. And I know that in my daughter's instance, they actually went to a compost farm. They actually went to a farm, and it was part of the class work. It was part of the educational lesson in the class. So I would say definitely reach out to your child's teacher as a starting point. That will trickle up to the PTA somewhere. There's got to be someone in that menu that goes from there. And then, of course, the best example is your child. If they do it, it is a conversation point when they go to school and with their friends, they start talking about it. And as they're little people, it's a competition. So it becomes a little competition for them. And now they want to know who did what and who did what. And the county definitely has a number of programs where children are involved in them. And you see them, they're participating in that. And if it helps, there are little awards out there because I've read them on the fairs when they do have them. So yes, definitely start out with your child's teacher. And see how you can get involved in that. And if they allow food, field trips and things of the sort, that's another way to get there. And the PTA, I believe in different instances, can work with you in continuing to expand that.
Thank you, Edna, for that. And again, I want to thank our speakers today for your presentations. Hope that was informative. Hope everyone learned a little bit today more about food scraps composting. Want to remind everyone, we do have one more webinar coming up on September 22nd from 10 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. Our focus will be on how to recycle right at multifamily properties. So we hope you can join us. Registration is open for that webinar. If you haven't had a chance to sign up already, you can go back to our website, montgomerycountymd.gov/recycle right, and click on recycling at multifamily properties. And then we have links to the webinar page. So again, thank you for joining us. Don't forget to complete your survey. And thank you for your time today and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.